Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Live to Roll show. I'm your host for the day, Brianna Wheeler, and we're back with another Women's Disability show. Today, we are going to be talking about mental health because it is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we just want to bring some awareness to something that we all care about and that we've been through. So we're going to get into some questions. We have our lovely Jessica here, who's a therapist, so she's going to be offering her input as well, and you guys can go take a look at her page if you guys are interested in doing therapy or just getting some more tips on mental health. She posted some great things and some great content on her page, so go and check her out. Okay, if you guys are joining us in the chat, feel free to drop your names, where you're from, any questions. Even if we moved on from a topic, don't be afraid to circle back around because we love those questions and we love our audience who are watching it live because you guys kind of have a different input and we can answer things that, other people that are watching later on might have questions too, but they're not getting it live right from out of our mouths, okay? So make sure you guys go ahead and leave your comments. I was going to get into questions before we did introductions, but let's do introductions. My name is Brianna. I am a T12, 7 years injured from Los Angeles, California. Let's go to Maya.
Hey y'all, I'm Maya. I am a C5, C6 quad, injured 5 years ago. I always forget how many years I'm injured, so I'm trying to make an effort with that. And I am from Chicago, well, from Illinois, but I live in LA now.
I love it. Let's go to Jessica.
Hi everyone, my name is Jessica Brito. I am a C7 incomplete and I've been injured 12 years. I live in Southern California, but Orange County.
Thank you. And let's go to Ashley and Nikki.
I'm Ashley. I'm Nikki. C4 quad. I'm a T6 paraplegic. We were in a car accident in 2019 that left both of us paralyzed. We're from Chicago.
That was a great introduction. You guys got it on point. Back and forth. Love it. That was bravo. A+. Okay, and so we're going to get our questions. We're going to talk about first, what do we each struggle with and what do we kind of identify with when it comes to mental health? Because there's so many different things that you can have when it comes to mental health. And what does it kind of look like for us? Because again, there's like a spectrum and people experience things on different levels, which I'm realizing. And so a lot of times people's experiences depend on how severe they feel on that spectrum. Okay, so I'll go first. I have anxiety and depression are my main ones. I've struggled with anger in the past and went to therapy for that, where I feel like I've definitely worked on it, but I still have my outbursts and my times where I get super frustrated really, really quickly. I am on the spectrum with ADHD, which has been a new discovery for me to like really recognize and identify with. So it's been a little bit of a struggle for me. Although I'm trying to be more open about it and like find these tools to help me with these other problems that I'm having, because I've kind of worked on my anxiety and my depression and my anger so much. I've like neglected other parts of my mental health, and I think that's where I'm at right now with that. Let's go to Ashley.
Lost my co-partner, but
No. Oh, sorry.
but okay, what we deal with mental health. So I have anxiety and probably some form of PTSD, but that's not diagnosed. So we'll stick with anxiety and depression, okay?
I'm sure we all automatically have PTSD, right, Jessica? Or how does that work?
So no.
We're all super fucking traumatized.
So not everyone that experiences trauma will result in PTSD, but yes, everyone who has PTSD has experienced trauma. What I do say as a trauma focused or a trauma therapist is that anxiety and depression are symptoms of trauma or PTSD. So there is a high chance that if you haven't worked on the trauma that you did develop PTSD. And although you're seeing it as anxiety and depression, those are just symptoms. they wouldn't be the actual diagnosis. So this is why it's good to get evaluated, guys.
Yeah. With PTSD, like, is there something that like is different from anxiety and depression that would kind of make you think that you had that, or is it really just based off of getting diagnosed?
So, trauma is the culprit for most disorders. Um, so you can have a trauma that results in anxiety and depression, right? But PTSD is a shift in your belief system of the world, yourself, and others. And so it can cause other things. Some either, you might have nightmares, you might become very fearful and avoidant of certain places, people, or things. You might have a lot of negative self talk, right? So I'll just speak for spinal cord injury. A lot of it sounds like, maybe if I wasn't in that car that day, it wouldn't have happened to me. If I wouldn't have, gone to that party, if I wouldn't have done this, if I wouldn't have done that. A lot of self blame that happens where you're blaming yourself for the trauma. A lot of like negative self view, right? I'm so stupid. I'm a mess. And some other traits are like hypervigilance. You're just jumpy. I know for me, my trauma left a lot of like weird jumpiness because I don't have memory of my trauma. So whenever metal hits metal, like it would be a physical reaction in my body. Like I could start crying and wouldn't know why.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of like stimulation in the body that can't be explained, or numbness where it's like you stop feeling. Um,
Mm-hmm.
So those are added symptoms of PTSD that you wouldn't always see in anxiety and depression. And even like
Oh,
risky behaviors, right? So someone experiences trauma and then just like starts doing a bunch of crazy shit, or becomes very hyper vigilant and won't do anything because they're too fearful.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great explanation. Thank you. And there is ways to work through it, but the main thing is like working through your trauma, right? Talking about it and getting tools is that kind of the only fix for PTSD?
There's still research happening on medications that can work for PTSD because it's so complex that right now medication is more of a symptom treatment. So basically, the way I would say it is if you have the flu and you take Tylenol, it doesn't stop the cough, but it stops the fever. So
Mm-hmm.
right now with PTSD, they don't have the perfect medication, but they have like they'll give you anxiety medication to treat the symptom of anxiety or the hypervigilance or the fear, but it doesn't treat the PTSD. So the best treatments are right now treatment. So sitting in therapy with a therapist. I don't recommend that people go around just telling their traumatic event to everyone because it can cause more trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really not this idea of let me tell everyone. Maybe telling people that you really trust and love and who support you. But I wouldn't say go around just telling everyone your story,
Mm-hmm.
and definitely working through it in therapy and finding therapists that are trained in trauma. So there are specific treatments for trauma. So if anyone has questions on those, I'm more than happy to like help out, but it's more like EMDR, somatosensory, cognitive processing therapy. So there's specific therapies for trauma.
Okay, okay. Interesting. So it gets in depth. This stuff, there's a lot of layers to it. Thank you, Jessica, for answering our question. Okay, Nikki, what about you?
What was the question? The first.
What do
Am I
you feel like? Oh,
you
did
struggle
you
with?
hear Ashley or
Uh,
no?
um, I feel like I know. I'm saying over here. Feel like anxiety and PTSD for sure. After my accident was something that I struggled with a lot. Yeah, that's it, right? I don't know.
Mhm.
Like I answered the.
What about you, Maya?
Let's see. I struggle with anxiety for sure. it's something that like I deal with. And I also think, oh man, okay. I'm about to tell on myself now. I've only admitted this to TJ before because I haven't wanted to change it
Mm-hmm.
fully. So I watch a lot of like TV shows that are very like um
True crime.
trauma filled. Yeah, so like like different I watch shows that have to do with like crime. I watched shows that have to do with like, medical dramas where things are consistently happening, and I've noticed a difference in myself and like my jumpiness and like reactiveness to things based on the amount of time I spend watching those TV shows. Granted, have I changed that? No. But I am realizing that that is one of like the causes of my anxiety, and it kind of keeps me in the like in that circle of that anxiety. I also struggle with a little bit of PTSD. I've always been working on that, and I think my faith is one thing that really helps me heal from PTSD because my injury was pretty traumatizing when it had to do with like my friends or people that I called my friends actually harming me and wanting to kill me, so to speak. It took me a while to actually like realize that these people were my friends and they had the intention of killing me, and so just sitting with that was really emotional. And it was kind of hard to cope through, but my faith has definitely allowed me a better outlet to coping with that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's something that I've recognized too with myself with the shows, like to a level where I can't even watch like news, or I have to stop watching stuff that like CSI, where that it's like so back to back with it because my head won't stop turning. I want to solve the crimes. I can't even watch no shows like Unsolved Mysteries. Oh, no, no, no. I need the mystery to be solved at the end because if not, I will lose my damn mind. I am
When
so big on it. It's bad, but you know what? Awareness is the first step, right? Just cause.
Yeah.
when you just said
Okay,
that, I
and
was
Jessica,
like,
what do you
when
identify
I
with?
was
Oh,
when
sorry.
I was like a year or two ago, I always watched those shows, the podcasts. I stopped clean turkey, cold turkey, and it's been the best decision I've ever made because I was paranoid as heck, man. Like Ashley will
Yeah.
tell you, she was like, "You need to stop watching that stuff." I was like, "I do. You're right. I do." It
Yeah.
was freaking me out. I'll be like tweaking.
Yeah, and
Ashley
what's
said,
so crazy? What'd you say, man?
no, I was going to say, Ashley said One Tree Hill only.
Period. Yup.
On
Maya's on
repeat. You
point.
just run that
Bro,
shit back.
Maya's on repeat. Maya ain't lying there. Only don't watch season 2. Does everybody know this about you? Because it's a personality trait at this point.
It's so hard for me to watch shows that aren't like that because a part of me is just like annoyed with them living their happy merry go round life. Like even during like Valentine's Day, like or Christmas time, sometimes it's hard for me to even watch those types of movies because I'm just like, okay, yeah, I'm so sure that happened, not in my fucking life. That's not the way shit goes down over here. So like it's hard for me. But yeah, jumpiness. I was never jumpy before my injury at all, and afterwards, my body went. Even when I was trying to fall asleep, all of a sudden I would just like jerk awake, and it still happens to me sometimes. Loud noises, like it's my body goes into like a shaking panic, and it's so frustrating. I get so annoyed because I'm just like, "You're fine, get it together, like it's okay." And for some reason, my body will just freak out, and like even like to have me out on 4th of July, my family has worked with me. There's been like times where I was just like, okay, let me just try to go out of my door. And as soon as they opened the door, I couldn't even get out. And then slowly I was like, let me try with earbuds playing music inside of my ears. And I was able to do that one year. I was able to take out one. And sometimes it still jumps me, but I'm pretty good at talking myself down now from loud noises. I haven't been able to do it where it's consistent, like going to the shooting range. I just feel like I'm gonna freak out if I go over there. And so a part of me wants to feel like I'm gonna overcome this thing of loud noises, but I don't know. I hate not being in control of my body. It annoys me so much. But I didn't realize that was a symptom of PTSD.
Yeah.
So, Jessica, what do you have?
What do you have, Jessica?
What's
For
wrong
me,
with you, girl?
I think that the biggest struggle I have is my ADHD. It does get in the way. I recently got on medication, and it's crazy because I realized, and I kind of already had this thought where I spasm all day and every type of spasm, and I'm always wiggling and I'm always moving. And, I know that everyone spasms, but I've been in a room with a bunch of people in chairs and no one seems to move as much as me. And I have ADHD higher on the spectrum for hyperactivity. So before my injury, I was always jumping, dancing. Like I would dance down the supermarket aisle. Like I couldn't sit still. And so I finally was like, okay, I think I need medication, and not for that, but for like concentrating and getting shit done. But it was funny because I asked the doctor what would happen, and yeah, my spasms got better.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, so it just because my spasms are really bad because I'm incomplete, and so the message is trying to be sent and it's going nowhere, so it goes everywhere. And yeah, I've noticed that mental health is physical health. You guys hear me say this all the time. So just because I don't have a thought that I'm scared, it doesn't mean my body isn't, right? Or just because I don't have the ability to get up and walk, it doesn't mean my ADHD stopped,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
That's
do
my
you feel like because your career, you've been in your career for such a long time now and everything, like, do you feel like a difference in like how you respond to your patients, what you're able to do? Like, is it all just positive that you see, or like, did your racing mind or anything like that, did you have any benefits to that not being on medication? Do you get me?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I don't know what people without ADHD go through on meds, but for me, it so I don't mind having ADHD. I like it. Like the thought of shutting my brain down was really scary for me. But the paperwork side or the business side of my job was struggling, and so I kind of had to really make that call. But no, with everything I do, I haven't had any issues. If anything, I mean, I'm just more calm. Like I'm not so in a rush, or I'm not so rushed, I think.
Mm-hmm.
With my clients, and that's another thing that people don't understand. Like ADHD doesn't mean you can't pay attention. It's just where your attention goes. And when it goes to my clients, I'm good. I've never had an issue, right? My clients are always amazed on how much I remember. But when it comes to the business side, so filing the paperwork, filing the insurance stuff, doing the billing, like the admin part is really hard for me. I mean, I hired a scheduler because, I can't look at calendars. I don't like them at all. But I mean, we live in a world where you need calendars, right? So my brain can't do that. I mean, maybe now on medication, it can better.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a full cure either because my brain is so used to racing that, I mean, I'm still probably not at a level of a person that doesn't have ADHD, even on medication.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I feel like I struggle with that, with the things that I have and the medication that they want to give me for it. I feel like I feel so like even more depressed on it because I feel so not myself. Like for instance, anxiety medication. You guys see me always with my Red Bull. Like I need to be up. I can't be like slumped, slurring over my words, like downers at all. I can't be around. Just from my family history, I have probably trauma from that too. And it just makes me feel automatically like disgusted with myself, and I hate it so much. And I have not found like anxiety medication that makes me not feel like that, where I feel like so just out of it, you know? And I feel the same thing with ADHD medication. Like, yeah, it's annoying having my brain like race from thought to thought and all this stuff, but feeling like I can't think neither, like that scares me, you know, because also I feel like there's pluses to me, my personality, and what I can do because of how I process things.
And that's the medication is not supposed to do that, right? And so if it is, then you're on the wrong meds. Uh,
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not a psychiatrist, but from what I hear, the best medication for people who have ADHD, anxiety, and depression is Wellbutrin, which is not a stimulant. So it's very
Mhm.
different than ADHD meds, but it works for all three. So I'm not a
Okay.
psychiatrist, guys, so don't think anything I say on medication, ask your
You
doctor.
watch us, girl. Okay. So we have lots of comments going over here. Let's see what's going on up here. Hello, everyone. Hello, Gracie. Andrew. It's difficult with mental health as I am autistic, second time cancer patient, living alone. Roger that. Don't we all, my friend? I don't know what that was referenced to, but I'm sure we all have it. It's
Watching
odd
too much
how my
TV.
Andrew.
it's odd how my body reacts to crowded places or when a room fills with people. I can't breathe and my heartbeat rises to the point I can hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah, crowded places can definitely be overwhelming for a lot of us afterwards as well. Mm, food is art. Hello, ladies. Hugs from Portugal. Oh, hello. Sin. Hello, ladies. Loud noises startle me. I have spasms too, girl. Mm-mm. I
Is on the
buttons on the roulette. My roulettes.
Maya is
I
on the
can't.
roller.
She's just a part of us too. Thank you so much for commenting. We love you, girl.
She's Rolette's fam and Live to Row fam.
Yes, we have her on both the best of both worlds. She's Hannah Montana up in this disabled community.
Not Hannah Montana.
Oh,
Like here you get to see like my stoner, like unedited, more real self.
yeah,
Really.
she's fun over here, guys. Just kidding. Okay, so when did you realize that what you were feeling had a name to it, and how did it make you feel? Did you have anybody to relate to at that time? So was it before your injury, after injury? Like, when did you really hear that mental health was even a thing, or that, you know, that what you were feeling inside actually had a name to it? And did you have anybody to talk to about that, or anybody who understood what you were feeling at that time? Maya, let's start with you.
Let's see. So, I knew that like mental health was a thing before my injury. And I knew that it was important, but I also didn't think that it was a thing for me, right? So it was like one of those things that's for everyone else. Like everyone else needs to check their mental health, but I'm fine. And a lot of that had to do with like the delusion that I was in because I was on drugs, at that time prior to my injury. And I little did I know that I was on drugs because I was coping with my mental health when I didn't know how. I didn't know how to cope in a healthy way, right? So then after my injury, it was more of like a wake up call, like, whoa, you need to work on your mental health too, Maya. It's not just about everyone else.
Mhm.
And so that was when I really like started diving deep on specifically the trauma that I had just went through and how I didn't want that to affect me moving forward in my life because I was really afraid of using drugs again. Like in the hospital early on, I was like, I want to do anything that I can in my power to heal so I don't go back to drugs because
Mhm.
that's what has led me here. And I feel even though I have paralysis now, and even though that my life is completely different, I felt a weight lifted off of my shoulders, which is it's kind of a hard thing to explain for me. But and I it was like the weight of addiction was lifted off of my shoulders a little bit, and I wanted to avoid going back to that at all costs. And so then I kind of just like dove deeper, and I didn't have anyone around me who was looking into their mental health at that time. You know, it really took my injury for everyone to check on their mental health. Like my mom obviously has PTSD from my injury, and that's when she was able to start like recognizing her own anxiety and her own PTSD. And so like that type of environment where everyone is kind of like self-reflecting and wanting to be more healthy was really helpful to me when I was starting to learn about mental health further.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Okay, Ashley and Nikki, what about you guys? When did you guys realize that what you're feeling really had a name to it? Were you guys open with each other about how you guys were feeling? Was this before or after your injury? What was kind of your journey with that? Let's start with Ashley.
You're a bitch. She told me I was gonna go first, so when you called me out to go first,
sorry, I just feel like it's easier sometimes to call you guys because you guys be always like not wanting to do it. So I just need to call one of your guys' names.
But okay. When did I realize what I had a name to? I think I want to say it was when I was in college. So how old is that? 18, 19 is when I realized I had a name to it. And I would say I had a little group of people that I had like in college and like throughout like various stages of my life that I could talk to.
You weren't injured.
Yeah, and I wasn't injured.
Mm-hmm.
And then after being injured, I think that's when I got clinically diagnosed. But like I knew it had a name to it. Like, but after my
Do you
injury,
feel like it intensified, or it was just feelings you were always feeling?
I feel like in ways it did, and then in ways it didn't. Like, I definitely my social anxiety now through the roof. I've learned I have ways to manage it. Me and Nikki were actually just talking about this before the live, where like I'll give myself time. Like, I know I don't like to talk to people on the phone. I know I don't like to email people back. So I make a schedule for myself, and I give myself that time to be like, okay, you have like your moment with it, and then you respond, and that's okay. Like, I don't mind if you leave a voicemail. I'll get back, okay? Let me know what you want to talk about.
I'm the same way.
It is my
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Okay, interesting.
So
And what about you, Nikki?
Did I answer the entire question? I know it's
Yes,
two-parter.
yes.
Okay, cool. What about you, Nick?
Was it when did I start?
When did you realize what you were feeling had a name to it?
I realized what it had, like, I mean, you always like know these terms, right? Your whole life, you know the terms and stuff. But I think after my accident, it like all feel like it like a lot just heightened, like the anxiety. I never had experienced PTSD, so that was like kind of a new that not kind of that sorry. That was a new one because it was just like it just sometimes it felt like I couldn't control like reactions or like what my body was doing or how I was feeling or like. And it took me seeking out therapy, which I know I was been open on here about, to like really just start to realize like ways to cope with it. In the beginning, for me, I was really against like medication and just doing those sorts. But like I said earlier, I knew I had to give up true crime if I wanted to like just ease my mind. And I'm telling you, it's worked like tremendously. And there's also other little things that I did too. Not just that I realized were also like contributing to like how I felt in certain moments, like even like what Ashley said, like giving yourself time. I know for me, I'm like a maybe one or two things planned in a day type person, and that's it. Like I ain't doing more than that. I'm not trying to run like a silly goose.
Go you.
Yeah, like I know myself, so it's like yeah, I don't know. And then even just like the social interactions, like having social anxiety for me is like I've always just been like fake it till you make it, and I just love to like fake like I got the confidence, and then all of a sudden I'm like there and I'm like, wow, this was so bad, it's not so bad. And then I feel And then it seems like over the years it has just become like more natural, like to just show up like without that anxiety. Like recently I actually returned to work and I was talking to my therapist like, I am scared. I feel like my social anxiety, the day I got there, I did the whole fake it till you make it. I felt so fine. I'm like, wow. And she was like, see what I mean? This is what we've been working on. I didn't realize like everything you work on, how just I was like, I went to her the next day. I'm just like, this actually wasn't that bad. Like I was like all freaking out before, and she's like, see, you were freaking out more than it actually was. So it's just funny, like how just the little tools over time have, just like I've noticed, like my anxiety and PTSD just gotten less because I've just gotten different tools over the last 4 years or 4 years injured. Oh wow. Yeah.
And that's the goal. That's the beauty of it too, is like watching those things ease up a little bit and how much life is more easier. Because sometimes I don't think we're so used to just surviving that we don't realize that it's not supposed to be this hard. It's there's the ways to make it a little bit more easier. That's not to say that you're not going to have struggles or have bad or sad days. It just means it doesn't have to be so intense, and that maybe what you're feeling, it would be beneficial to get a little bit of ease off of that, to quiet your brain a little bit, to calm those nerves a little bit, and who knows what you can accomplish or who you can become if you got that little step ahead that some people in the world have, and you might think, damn, why can they do it so easy? Well, because they don't have those racing thoughts, or they don't have those things, or they're dealing with something else, or maybe they fixed it. Everybody has a journey, and they all have a behind the scenes too. Jessica, when did you realize? So for you, was it before your injury that you identified, or you were ever interested in therapy?
So for me, no. I had traumas from before my injury, and I always said that I was thankful I had gone through those traumas because it prepared me for my injury. And then I had never been to therapy or anything like that because in my family, you just walk it off and there's nothing wrong. So you don't do therapy. And even my ADHD, my mom, she had a rule, just keep Jessica moving, keep her entertained, keep her busy, and she's fine. And so when I was in the hospital, completely paralyzed, she told the doctors, you guys need to start moving her. And they were like, she's paralyzed. What do you mean? She's like, no, you don't understand. Like, she'll go crazy. And the thing with ADHD is emotion regulation is really hard. So when I get mad, I get mad. There's no mediating like how bad it can get. When I'm happy, I'm the happiest person on earth. And when I cry, I will cry for 15 hours straight. And so my mom knew, like, I cannot, like, she needs to move. Like, you cannot stop her from moving. And the doctors were just looking at her like, well, what's wrong with her, She's like, nothing. There's nothing wrong with her. She just can't stop moving. That's normal for her, Mm-hmm. And it's funny because I worked in rehab now, and I had a neuropsychologist follow me. Like, she was with me like 3-4 times a week, asking me a million questions, doing a bunch of tests, and I couldn't understand. I just thought it was normal for the process. And at the end, she was just like, you're in college? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, how do you do your homework? Like, how many accommodations do you have? What meds are you on? And I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, you have, moderate to severe ADHD. Like, how are you functioning, And girls with ADHD tend to kind of create their own system, and girls are shamed more than boys when they have ADHD. And so for me, it was like, sit still, girls don't do that. Do this, girls don't do that. Do that. And so, I mean, shame is horrible, but it really kept me in line. Not that I didn't do a bunch of risky shit as a teenager, right? Because with ADHD, you can't assess risk and you don't have impulse control. So I did a lot of risky things, and I just thought, I'm fine. I just have to figure out how to graduate, So yeah, I found out that I had ADHD after being injured, and she couldn't figure out how I got through school. But I mean, in college, I failed a lot. I was on probation a lot. I mean, I got into grad school on probation. So I never had accommodations because I didn't know. And then when I found out, I still was like, I'm fine. You know, it wasn't until like I just kept being around a lot of people in chairs that I wanted to understand depression and PTSD and anxiety. I still wasn't even looking at ADHD. And so I went back to school and decided to study psychology. And the more I understood about ADHD, and I was like, oh no, I'm not okay.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And I relate a lot to that. I feel because as a kid, my older brother also had ADHD, but his was like severe, and he was like always just so hyper, so crazy. And I feel like mine kind of got pushed to the side, and the fact of like mine was a lot more internally. I had to be the oldest. I dealt with tons of trauma. Don't even get me started at that as from a very young child. And so this was kind of just looked at of who I was. The little annoying things about me was just those little unique things that just Brianna does. It just ignore it, keep on going. And then afterwards, as I started getting older and feeling these things, I knew about them, but because of the amount of craziness in my family, not exaggerating, that I didn't feel like I was as crazy as they were. So I didn't, they needed to get the help, if anything, not me, and I felt that for a very long time until after my injury. I still was putting on that like brave older sister face where like people would ask me if I was okay. And I'd be like, yeah, at least I'm alive. I'm here, blah, 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 blah. And I didn't want to put that negative emotion on anybody, which is just something I struggle with. And it wasn't until like a year and a half later that I just realized that I was spacing out so much. I was crying so much. I was freaking out. I couldn't go in public. I couldn't talk. I couldn't leave my house. I was going through so many things, and I was like, maybe this injury didn't just break my spine. Maybe it broke my brain too. Like I feel like I'm broken from tippy top to the tippy bottom. I feel like I'm all messed up and I need help and I don't understand what's going on. And I did go to therapy when I was in about seventh grade, I think it was, because that's when my mom got into rehab and got sober. And during the program, we had to go to therapy, and that's when I worked on my anger issues, because that was kind of the main thing that they were kind of focusing on is like, okay, this girl gets overly angry. They called me the buzzkill child. I was like, in check, feed us, take us to school, be parents. And like I was constantly like just yelling at them. So that's what she felt like I needed to fix. And as a child going through that, I think going through therapy too, you realize that different things you're angry about. So I felt like I worked through a lot of different things. And then now as I'm getting older, I'm realizing those things are coming back. My anxiety will get really intense if I have like a trauma memory. Being around my family for a long period of time is not the easiest for me. Sometimes they just say something or do something that triggers me all over again. And sometimes honestly, like I'm not as quick with identifying it. I just get so frustrated still with myself of not having it together and wanting to be a perfectionist and wanting to be okay around everybody. And it takes me a little bit to realize like I need to start from zero again. What tools are going to help me? Just because I journaled and I feel like I got through that and I don't have to journal anymore, or whatever the case may be, maybe I need to do that again. Maybe I need to do breathing exercises again. Maybe I need to start reading affirmations, or I need to start praying more, or I need to start doing different things like I did before in the beginning. Because the reality is that growth is consistent. And I feel like you're always going through growing stages. It never actually like fully goes away. And that's pretty difficult. A lot of people in my family still don't understand that whole aspect of it. And it's just hard to tell people who don't understand that you're going through so much internally and you're trying to get through it, and like why you might be having these little outbursts, so that's what's always really difficult for me. And then my injury didn't make it any better. It just kind of intensified everything. And I was going to school for psychology too before my injury, but it was like to fix everybody else around me, not to fix myself, which is so weird. But that's what happened. Okay, so after your injury, do you feel like you were given the right mental health resources? And did they ever put you on medication? Like what did they tell you? Did you only receive a therapist inside the hospital? Did they have you see somebody afterwards? Or what was that process kind of like, Maya?
So for me, I okay, so I did just talk about how I wanted to avoid addiction at all cost.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very adamant I do not want medication at all. Like period. Still to this day, I haven't taken any mental health medication for like anxiety or for ADHD or for PTSD for that reason. And it actually kind of hinders me, especially with my ADHD. I feel like my anxiety and my PTSD are things that I can manage a lot easier with my faith, but when I'm like working and I am, doing all of these different things that I do every day, it's really hard for me to focus. And then also, Jessica, what you just mentioned about like your spasms actually improving after you got on the correct medication, like that it pushes me a little bit more towards like, okay, maybe I'll get treated for it. But also I still have that, like I'm afraid, especially just because, my drug of choice was meth. Adderall is like it's the
It is,
go-to prescription
yeah.
for ADHD, and that is literally legal meth. And that scares me. Like, and when it comes to my faith, I want to operate out of faith and not fear, but it's just like that is one thing that I am like just so afraid of, because I know myself, I can't pick up I can't pick up the pipe and do that on my own and smoke. Like my injury has actually helped me curb addiction, because I just literally can't go physically use unless someone helps me, and nobody else that is in my life right now is going to help me do that.
I just hold the pipe for
So
me real quick.
actually,
Yes, do you need any help? You can help me with something.
like, can you imagine? Like, hey, TJ, actually, you want to do something wild? Like,
No, but
so it's
can
just like,
Maya, I will tell you, so that's the funny thing, right? So you said like after my injury, I realized I was medicating for my mental health. And that's such a huge one because people with ADHD function on meth. And so they are medicating. Um, but usually, anyone who's done meth and has ADHD, they do a non stimulant. So they wouldn't give you Adderall. So it'd be more
okay, see,
it would be more like a Wellbutrin, or yeah, they wouldn't do a stimulant for you.
yeah, see, and no one told me that when I was just like, I'm a drug addict. I don't want any drugs, period. Like, they didn't help me understand like other ways to cope or other mechanisms to use when I was in the hospital, to like treat my ADHD or to cope with it, So now I started using caffeine, similar to Brianna, like I would make sure I have my 2 cups of coffee and by noon, because if not, my work is not getting done. And if I have it after noon, then my body is like overstimulated and I'm freaking out, So
Yeah. And I'll say this, that another misconception of ADHD meds is that you have to be on them. You don't. ADHD meds are as needed, which is very different than depression and anxiety meds, which take a couple weeks to work and you have to stay on them. We say that even if you pick a career that doesn't involve like paperwork and schedules, and then you don't even need meds, and you shouldn't be on meds. For me, it's more of just like getting my case notes done, but I wouldn't need him to see a client. Does that so? You don't have to take them on weekends. For kids, we say they don't have to take them in the summer. They don't have to take them on weekends. They don't have to take them on their day off. Like, so it's not this thing where you stay medicated.
And is that the same for Wellbutrin? Because I know earlier you mentioned, and I know Jessica is not a psychiatrist, y'all.
I'm
Just a
gonna
gentle
get
reminder.
I mean, that's
But
what
because
she
I know
says, but
I know you mentioned that it can be used for like depression, anxiety, and ADHD, and I know that like being regulated from those other mental health disorders are it's a little more intense of like needing to stay
yeah,
on them. So I'm just curious like how
yeah.
that works
So,
for
because
ADHD.
because that's not a stimulant. Um, I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, you probably have to stay on it. But again, like I think meds just get a bad rep because it's crazy to think that, for me on a medication, it levels me to a quote unquote normal level, right? So if you were on Wellbutrin ongoing, well, they would give you Wellbutrin because it doesn't have the addictive component and you don't increase dosage. So once you hit the dose that works for you, you just stay on that. Um, but you and it, anxiety and ADHD have a really interesting relationship, and depression, because the ADHD will cause anxiety because you can't finish shit. So you get anxious, right? Because you can't finish things. And then when you fail, you go into a depression. So your ADHD puts you in this cycle sometimes that is, that's why a medication like that is really good, because the ADHD will cause the other two to get worse.
It's good to
interesting.
know.
Yes, thank you. Full information. Okay, Nikki, were you given the right resources? Did they ever? So you said you were against medication from the beginning. So did they offer them to you, and you were just like, no, not really feeling that, or did they offer a therapist?
Well, from the beginning, they never offered any like those medications, but I was even against just like pain meds and all that too. So I was just like, I feel like every doctor I've ever worked with knows that I'm more of like the holistic route. I rather try first before we do anything else. But they did provide like in what inpatient they provided a therapist, and then when I had gotten home, like I did the own searching of for my own to like have a therapist, just because I was like aware enough that like something was going on. I guess is like a good way to put it.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know. For me, medication, like I had explored it maybe for like a second. I was like, I don't want to do this. For me, it's just always nervous because of like how I be feeling. Like I'm actually getting over ammonia right now, and I've been on medication, and they makes me so tired. I've just never had a medication that makes me feel good. It makes me tired. I feel like my body gets jittery, and it's just really like be irritating. So I know how it is to be on medicines because obviously I take medicine here and there, but I'm just not. I don't know. I'm just not a fan of it. Never have been, even when I was able-bodied though. So
Mhm.
like yeah, but that was like they didn't really give much resources though. That was about it. Like the
Like did just the therapist in the hospital, and that was
yeah,
actually
and that
right.
was like
For me, I had I saw someone when I was even in ICU, like even when I couldn't talk or breathe on my own, like I was talking to someone.
oh you did.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know it's like a weird thing to say, but like I was talking to
I
someone,
am actually relates.
like I was, and like that was really helpful. I'm not gonna lie, like honestly, I probably would have pulled the cord had I not been talking to someone that early on. Like that was nice. So, and then we had the therapist at Shirley Ryan, and then yeah, after that I was like kind of on my own.
Yeah, but I feel like they need to do better actually. Let
They
me just put
do
that
now
out
that
there.
when I'm thinking
At
about
giving
it.
resources to people with spinal cord when it comes to mental health. They always focus on the physical health and they forget that like they need to focus on the mental health. And it's not just a therapist, like maybe like other things. At least where
Mhm.
we were at, I don't feel like there was a lot of like I don't know that support, the peer support,
There is
the
support group, yeah.
community. But those were all depressing, and that's why I didn't go. I couldn't listen to everybody be depressed. I need like but that's me, and that's what I mean. They need different. I don't know. I feel like they need different. Maybe they. You didn't mention that. Mention your little support group.
I mean, I see what you mean and why you didn't go,
Freaking Nikki.
but I guess it was all my homies, you know. It
Yeah.
was all my homies that I was in a lot of like other groups with, so I liked it. It was nice to
Well,
get
and see,
comfortable.
and
I went one
I
week, and
think
it wasn't for
it's
me.
I think it is saying something because all three of us went to the same hospital, and like we've all expressed that we didn't have resources coming out of it, So I just think, Shirley Ryan, I love you, but if you're listening, you need to do better.
Well,
I think it's a problem that they have. I hear from a lot of people that are injured that didn't get the right care
so
afterwards. What do you have to say about that?
I'll defend them a little.
Man, I thought you were gonna stick on our side, Jessica. Just kidding.
So here's the thing, right? So they give us a therapist and inpatient. And the thing is that therapists can't do deep work. And some of the stuff we're going through in that moment, we're not even ready to deal with, right? And so, I also tell people like we're great actors in the hospital. Like people would come in and say, "How are you doing?" I'm doing great. The therapist would come in and I'd be like, well, how was your day? Like, let's talk about you. Like, I wasn't ready. And so some people, I think the only thing is to educate more on the outpatient part, because I think that's where the disconnect is. Letting the patient know, like, you know what, you might feel great right now. And, I love your attitude. But, in the future, you might start noticing this or notice. So maybe educating, they do need to get better at educating on what's going to happen when you leave. But unfortunately, a lot of hospitals aren't specialized in spinal cord injury. And like I told Triumph, I'm like, I honestly can't be hanging out anymore with new injuries because, at least in a social aspect, because I can't treat people that I hang out with. And it's like, well, I'm the only freaking therapist around here that knows what this is about, right? And then I can't treat them. So I kind of have to refrain now from making new friends because I want to be able to be a resource and treat them. But the reality is that there isn't enough people who understand our injury, right? And this isn't a bad thing, even though it is a bad thing, because what it's saying is there isn't enough spinal cord injuries for them to know enough about it, which is like, it's kind of a good thing, right? We don't want people getting injured. So. But it kind of makes us a really small population. So yes, there needs to be more education on the resources outside, right? No one talks about private practice. No one talks about community mental health as an option for someone in a chair. And it should be offered. But yeah, I had a psychologist, and the whole time I was like, I'm good. How are you? The most I got out of it was, you have ADHD, but that was it. Because I kept pretending I was good.
Mm-hmm. I remember in the beginning too, they sent in a psychologist and she was like, like, what's wrong? I'm like, I'm paralyzed. What the fuck? That's about it. On my list, paralyzed recently, shot in the back. That's about it. How's your day going? But it wasn't until later on that I really grasped. But I think that's just a problem in general after you're injured. Sometimes they're like, do you have any questions? And you're like, well, I have 10 million questions, but I don't really know how to say them or what to really ask, Yeah. And like, I feel like that's the disconnect. And it also like goes in the kind of the categories of like, well, we can't waste all our resources helping somebody who doesn't want to get help. So if it's up to you to reach out and get a therapist after the fact, and that can be really hard on people. It's hard for me to even deal with them. I hate dealing with operators. I hate calling the phone. I called my doctor twice and the line was staticky today and I almost lost my freaking shit. And I think that's not factored in as well, how hard it might be to deal with Medi-Cal and to deal with like getting somebody who's trauma-based or who can really help you. Because again, then I had a therapist who just didn't know anything I was going through. And I was irritated talking to her because the amount of stuff that I was going through and the advice that she was giving me was just not adding up. I'm like, girl, like, it's not working for me, and then that can turn people off to the fact of therapy. And that's what kind of sucks about it too,
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a flawed system, but we're working on it. I think by talking about it is the most important thing, and getting more people who understand that.
Yes. So education's key, guys. I think there just isn't enough education in mental health as it is, let alone specific to us.
Okay, so like when we're dealing with other people's mental health, this is something I added this question in because it's something that I realized that I had recently of like being compassionate to other people's mental health and maybe something that we're not understanding. I feel like I have this problem with able-bodied people a lot. Me and Jessica were talking about it. And it's just where they might be dealing with something frustration, bipolar, they might be dealing with their own depressive episode or their own anxiety, but the things that they're relating it to is just so annoying to me. I'm just like, get over it. Like things could be worse. I feel like I get that attitude sometimes and I want to be understanding and I want to be like, I get it, but like I feel myself getting frustrated more after my injury. Before my injury, I feel like I was way more understanding to the fact, but afterwards and having to deal with so many different things, I get extremely frustrated. And sometimes I feel like my mental health might triumph what somebody else is going through, and I might just feel irritated or overwhelmed or sad or whatever the fact, and I can't really focus on what you're feeling, or I don't understand that point of view. So I don't know if you guys also struggle with this or something that you deal with family members or anything like that. I'll start with Ashley and Nikki.
First, shout out to the super chat while I think of my answer.
Oh my God.
Shout out to the
There's like a
super chat.
$50.
Wow, thank both of you guys so much. Thank
That was
you,
that too.
Jay, and thank you, Sin. That is so amazing. Such a great channel. I love what all you guys have achieved. Wow, thank you. That means a lot to us.
Period.
We need our claps.
Go see Ed
Come on,
my
where you
photo
at?
video.
You following us? Thank you.
Oh.
We appreciate it.
What was the question? Oh, like what you think? Okay, I'm sorry.
Mhm. Like maybe even with each other, like is it hard for you to like identify what each other are going through, or with other people that may experience like something that you guys don't experience, like anger or
Oh yeah,
something like that?
I feel like for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Like we're going through like we understand each other, but we're also going through different things ourselves, right?
Yeah, like with everybody.
Like it's like with everything though. Like we're twins, but we're not just like. Definitely, our injury has kept it where like I guess it could be frustrating where people like compare us a lot or think that it's like the same type of thing, and that we're not going through like I guess different mental or physical journeys even too, because our bodies are different physically as well. And I think sometimes even like for people, for like family, maybe friends, it's like hard to understand. Maybe, I don't know. Does that make sense? Am I making sense?
No, you
Yeah,
are, because
yeah.
I feel like we've talked about this all the time. I sound like a broken record, but like how we're, we were kind of living like me and Nikki are very close, but like before our injury, we were living pretty different lives, right? You say, and then we got injured, and all of a sudden we were thrown together all the time. So not only do we have our trauma to deal with from the injury and like the mental and physical health that's going on with that, it's like we also have these outside opinions of people now placing us together, thinking that I'm going through what she's going through, and she's going through she's going through what I'm going through, and it's like,
or why aren't you at the same spot?
Yeah, or why aren't we at the
Comparison.
same level? And it's like because our experiences are different, and we're gonna level up at different paces, at our own pace, our personal human pace.
Yeah, like
you guys. So, and I'm only going to say this because we were talking about this, but do you guys have problem listening to able-bodied problems?
sometimes, yeah.
Like being compassionate or empathetic when they're struggling with something that to us is like, bro, you're fine.
Sometimes, yeah. Like I have my days where I'm like,
I feel like I'm a good listener, but like don't expect me to be the one that's gonna like, boo-hoo. Like, I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna listen, nod my head.
I'll boo-hoo with them.
See, I won't, because sometimes I'm just like, that's the wrong audience. You want someone to boo-hoo for you, you need someone else. I'll listen. I'll listen. Certain things, I'm like talking about like petty things certain people will like complain about. Like I'm like, I wish that was my problem. But like big thing, then I'll boohoo.
Like when I complain about my nail breaking.
Yeah, like when I complain about our nail breaking, like I'm not gonna boohoo with you when you are struggling with the outfit idea. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna live with your like frustrations or complaints there. You know what I mean?
Like I got other things
Like
to
I
deal
feel
with.
like not big thing. I feel like that's
Yeah. No, I feel you.
Yeah.
That is
Sometimes
hilarious.
it's like the pain. Like it's hard for me sometimes. Like
Oh yeah, that is.
I feel like I experience a lot of pain, and then I hear people like complaining about their like little like I don't know like hurt toe. I'm like
paper cut.
yeah. I'm like
Yeah.
that's great, but like I wish that was my pain right now because I'm over
Sometimes
it.
too, when I'm struggling more in the moment, I feel myself getting more irritated. Like if I didn't just deal with the problem, or I'm not like struggling with something, like I might let you complain a little bit more. But like one time my brother came in and told me he was bored, and I was like, you have 2 fucking legs and 2 arms, like go out and do something. You can drive. Like, what do you mean you're bored and you feel depressed because you're bored? Like, go fucking pick up a hobby. The fuck? I lost my shit. But that was just because I was having a bad day. That definitely happens. Maya, how is it with you being in a relationship as well? Like, do you feel like you ever get those moments where you're maybe dealing with things internally and then you feel like their problems are less than or anything like that?
Speaking like about like my relationship specifically, TJ, I don't know where this man came from. Well, actually, I do, the realms of the heavens, because he doesn't complain about anything. Like, I'm like, are you okay? Who are you?
Are you human?
Yeah, like he was just sick for this past like few days, and he's like getting up, taking care of me, running to the store, like doing all of these things, and I'm just like, how? So,
Oh.
it's definitely interesting on that aspect. I feel like we balance each other out for a lot of things. But then in other relationships, something that I've noticed is kind of like when people, well, one thing that I try to implement is like when people are doing like the boo-hoo thing, like, okay, I have a 5-minute rule. Like you have 5 minutes, you can go boo-hoo all whatever is wrong, whatever you have going on, like go boo-hoo for 5 minutes. And I think that's valid for anyone. It doesn't matter if you're able-bodied, doesn't matter if you're disabled. Like I just think we should allow ourselves to feel our feelings for 5 minutes, and then we need to like figure out the constructive way to cope after that. You know, like, okay, what am I going to do next? Or am I just going to still sit in this feeling icky? You know, that's one of the things that I try to implement and advocate for others to implement as well. And then sometimes in relationships with other people, like I actually find myself overcompensating emotionally because of the lack of help that I'm able to provide physically. I find myself being, it's basically internalized ableism. Like I need to do more emotionally to support you since I can't support you physically. So that's just one thing. It's like a different aspect for me on that. Yeah.
I love it. I just want to make a comment on somebody's comment over here. It's all relative. I am a quadriplegic. Even if somebody has it easier than us, they may also struggle with their difficulties. 1,000%. I don't think that we're saying that we don't think they struggle. We know that they're struggling with their feeling. You know, just because somebody's broken arm hurt doesn't mean somebody's broken finger doesn't hurt. You know, and that's kind of what I reference it to. But I think just like when you're going through the motions, it can be hard to be compassionate and to remind yourself to be compassionate. Like to remind yourself of those moments where you are getting a little bit more frustrated or you feel yourself like being annoyed with what they're saying. You might be dealing with something more internally. And I think like that's also what we realize, you know, and what we need to come to terms with. And I struggle with it a lot. But also it's like when I do have my little snapped moments, it's definitely a reflection instantly for me and being like, well, why am I feeling this way? Or honestly, TMI, but right before I'm about to start my period, oh my God, everything that people do annoy the hell out of me to the 10th degree, and I feel like I'm about to lose my damn mind. So if they come to me in one of those days, I might not be the nicest about it, you know, but I'm super compassionate. I care about people way too much. So I might let them boohoo to me and just be like annoyed on my own time. I might not like express to them how annoying I think that they're being at the moment.
Real quick before we continue, I am like 20 minutes late for a work call. I have to go, y'all.
No worries. We're gonna get off right now anyways. We're gonna wrap it up. We're going a little bit of overtime. So we love you, Maya. Thank you for chatting with us.
Yeah.
We love you, baby Trey. I know you can hear us.
Bye.
We gotta
Bye.
go too,
Have fun at
guys. We gotta get out of here too.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll wrap up
sorry.
right now. No, it's okay. I'm just gonna say our sponsorships really quick, and then we can just end the show. Do you guys want to wait for that, or you guys want to hop off already?
Yeah, we can wait.
Okay. So I just want to give a huge shout out to our sponsors, Mobility Professionals and Urology Professionals. They are great companies, and they really help out a lot inside of our company. So go give them a call and see if they can help you out with your urology supplies or any of your medical supplies. If you need a new wheelchair fix or you need a shower chair or anything like that, absolutely A+ customer service. Make sure that you guys tune in on Tuesdays for the Guys Show. They're back with a different topic every single week. Every single week we have Tom's gaming channel that he comes and does different games and plays Fortnite. If you guys are interested in joining that, make sure that you guys tune in. And we are back every other Thursday for our women's show with different topics. I'm missing one. The guys are back with They're Rolling Over the Hill every other Thursday. And yeah, that's where we're at. So we appreciate you guys all joining. And make sure you guys leave a like and comment. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel and follow us on Instagram. And that's all we have. Live to roll.
Bye, ladies.